Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Paul. I don't usually do these immediate match reactions in terms of recording something on my own. Typically, it's a post-match or a pre-match stream, but no one else is available today. Don't blame them, to be honest, considering what we've just had to witness. Everton travelled down to Selhurst Park to take on Crystal Palace. Final score was Crystal Palace 3, Everton 1, and to be very, very blunt, the performance was diabolical. I mean, there was a good 15-minute spell after we went 2 goals down, but other than that, I thought that Everton were absolutely dreadful. Same level of performance we've been seeing for a lot of games this season now under the current manager. Where do we start with it? Everton, I thought, were very, very timid in the opening 15 minutes of the game. We didn't look like a team that was coming off a big result like we did against, or rather, like we got the big result against Arsenal on Monday night. We didn't look like a team that was up for another game and to get another 3 points on the board. There was no sort of bounce whatsoever. We looked like a team that looked like we've been dragged out of bed to go and play this game down in London. Crystal Palace, who are, not to be overly disrespectful to them, are a bang average side. Got a couple of players who you think would probably do well in a team above them in the table, but other than that, they're just a bog standard bottom half team. Got a very unproven manager in Patrick Vieira. I was going to say inexperienced manager, but he's not really, is he? He's been around a while now, Patrick Vieira, but this was his first job in the Premier League, and they've had a bit of a mixed fortunes with him so far. They've had some games where they looked okay, some games where they looked really poor, some games where they looked really naive and dropped points late. But I went into this game very, very optimistic that Everton could at least get a point, if not take all 3 points. I thought we should be going into the game with the idea, the mentality that we were going to take all 3 points. We just had to get the tactics right and to have the right attitude. And we got both of them resoundingly wrong. Some of that's on the manager, some of that's on the players. Honestly, I've put the majority of the blame on the manager. That's me, because I thought the tactics were dreadful. We did line up with a team that I liked the look of to the start of the game, a 4-3-3, which we've barely seen under Rafa Benitez so far. We had Andre Gomez starting his first game of the season. We had Richarlison up front. We had Demarai Gray, who's been banging form up there, supporting Andros Townsend on his first game back against Crystal Palace. So you'd have thought Townsend would have had a bit between his teeth, but it's the complete opposite. We just had no idea really what we were doing from kickoff. We were just oofing the ball long and not putting a string of 3-4 passes together. The central midfield was being completely bypassed. I could probably count on my fingers the amount of times Decore and Fabian Delph touched the ball in the opening half an hour. Those 15 minutes, especially to start the game, were especially bad. What else really can you say about the first half? I think we absolutely deserved to go in 1-0 behind. It was not long before the half-time whistle. It was Conor Gallagher seized on a Demarai Gray mistake. I mean, I don't want to put all the blame on Demarai Gray because he has been our best player in recent weeks, and he was the only player who had even managed to even trouble Palace in their final third this game. I think we'd had 2 shots on target before we went 1-0 down, and both those shots were from Demarai Gray from about 25-30 yards. And that was because when he got the ball in the final third, he had no one looking to link up with him. He had no one busting a gut to get forward and offer him a ball, or anyone to drag a defender away to create space for him. So he just, both times, he had the ball, he had the goal in his sight, and he just thought, why not? Let's just have a crack. And he forced their goalkeeper into a pair of solid saves both times, but he made a dreadful mistake for their first goal, a dreadful mistake. It wasn't a great clearance from whoever it was in the box. I think it might have been Seamus Coleman, just 50 pence headed, or I can't sure whether he headed it or cleared it, but he hit it way wide. It didn't go up the field at all. Demarai Gray took the ball down initially very well, but then he tried to do a weighted pass back to, I think, Ben Godfrey on the left to get an attack started, but he got his weighted pass completely wrong and just gifted it straight to Jordan Ayew, who flashed it back into the box, and Conor Gallagher was there on cue, I think just inside the 6-yard area, to sweep it past Jordan Pickford, and we went in 1-0 behind, and deservedly so. And Evertonians were rightly throwing our hands up in the air afterwards at half time, thinking, what is that we've just witnessed? It's terrible. We don't look like a team that looks like we even want to be here. We certainly don't look like a team that's just got a really emotional, hard fought win a couple of days before and should have the bit between the teeth. Second half, we came back out and it was more of the same, wasn't it? It was more of the same. We just didn't have no substitutions at half time. Didn't look like the players had someone get stuck into them, the manager or his coaches, nothing like that. Just more of the meek, bland, safety first, no idea what we're doing. Sorry, my camera's going all over the place. Just no sort of leadership. I think that's the word. There was no leadership. There was no one taking the initiative. There was no one calling out the teammates, calling for calm, calling for a bit of nous, shall we say? Bit of nous, saying, right, when you get the ball, you don't have to panic. You don't always have to look up and see just because there's a few players in front of you trying to press you. You don't have to just turn around and take the safe option. Just look, there's going to be players around you. Just make sure that you're making them work and you're making them chase after shadows. And there wasn't any of that. We just panicked every time. We just hoofed the ball long up to Richarlison, who was never getting any joy, just chasing long balls all day, and he was growing frustrated as the game went on. And then I think it was just before the hour mark that Rafa Benitez probably made the most controversial decision of his tenure so far, arguably. He hauled off Richarlison and threw on his mate, Solomon Rondon. And to say Everton social media went berserk is an understatement. Richarlison, who is probably our best player, at least out on the pitch. He wasn't the best player in terms of how he was performing, but he had the most quality of any Everton player out there today. And the player he had won on the pitch when we're chasing a goal, he dragged him off and put through on Solomon Rondon, who's been absolutely dreadful since he arrived for Everton and hasn't offered anything really. And to say Richarlison was annoyed as Evertonians is absolutely accurate. He seemed to fob off the manager. He looked really, really upset on the bench. I know sometimes Richarlison has these sort of moody, the moody reactions sometimes, but this time he was fully justified in being not happy, and he looked like a player who just basically been made an example of when he didn't deserve it. Or at least that's the impression I got. I was looking at Richarlison and thinking that lad must think that he's done something wrong here and he doesn't understand what exactly it is. And fair play to the travelling Everton contingent. All the fans were singing his song and letting him know, hopefully, that while he sat there on the bench stewing, that we were not happy for him. We were on his side. We agreed that he should be out there on the pitch and he hadn't done anything wrong, really. But manager did what he did. He dragged off Fabian Delph along with Richarlison, and I think he threw on Anthony Gordon, who did very well. Fair play to the lad. He came on and offered more than the likes of Townsend had offered all afternoon, or the likes of Takore. I don't want to single players out too much, but I thought Takore had probably his worst game for Everton so far, or at least the worst one I can think of off the top of my head. He was completely anonymous, and late on in the game as well, he got a bit wound up and was giving away stupid fouls and was probably lucky not to avoid a red card for a particularly bad one on Conor Gallagher or Jordan Ayew. I think he fouled the both of them, but there was one that was particularly bad that he escaped he got a yellow card for, when he wouldn't have had any complaints. It would have been a straight red. Everton eventually went 2-0 behind just after the substitutions. It was James Tompkins left completely unmarked at the back post. Zonal marking again, coming back to bite Everton. Another Rafa Benitez tactic that he insists on deploying. James Tompkins just had the easiest tap in the world from a simple corner. 2-0 down, game gone pretty much. Evertonians there down in London rightly spitting feathers. Evertonians furious on Twitter, thinking, what is it that this man, what hold does this man seem to have over Farhad Moshiri, where he's just seemingly not even close to getting sacked. That's from Farhad Moshiri's mouth himself. He's not going to sack the manager anytime soon. He told Jim White that. I mean, we did drag a goal back. Solomon Rondon opened his account for Everton. He got a little scruffy tap in from one of the very few attacks when we managed to carve Crystal Palace open. And I think that was maybe around 70 minutes or so. And yeah, from the last 70 minutes, or from 70 minutes onwards rather, Everton basically were chasing an equaliser and looking to somehow rob a point, which we certainly didn't deserve. And we went close. Anthony Gordon was a breath of fresh air when he got on. He caused Crystal Palace all sorts of problems down that right side. It seemed like a lot of other players, like Townsend, and suddenly Andre Gomez decided to really get involved and create some chances. And they huffed and they puffed and they gave it a go. Far, far too late in the day for me, but we did come close to getting an equaliser. But in the end, it was the icing on the cake, really. We were chasing an equaliser and we left ourselves a bit open at the back, and Crystal Palace got the ball up the field, and I think it was Mason Aldgate gave away a stupid foul. I mean, that lad is absolutely brain dead. I don't rate him at all. I can't believe he's still getting starts for Everton, even in the midst of an injury crisis. He's really, really not good enough. I think he's barely good enough for the Premier League, never mind a club like Everton. But yeah, Mason Aldgate gave a stupid free kick away. Palace just launched it upfield, looking to clear it, essentially, just keep the ball on Everton's half so we couldn't go down their end and attack them. And they worked it into the corner, and I think Seamus Coleman again, with a bit of a rubbish clearance, played it straight to Conor Gallagher in the centre of our half, and The lad's fair play to him. He looks an absolute jewel of a player, doesn't he? He got his second of the game with an absolute screamer. Top corner, unsavable. Makes it 3-1. Game absolutely dead and buried for certain. And Everton come back up to Merseyside with 0 points on the board and even more reasons to strongly dislike Rafa Benitez and want him out of the job ASAP. The manager's not going to get sacked imminently. We know that. I've touched on that before. The owner just doesn't seem to be wanting to pull the trigger. Has faith in him when no one else does. Goodness knows where this leaves the morale in the squad. I mean, we really missed Luca Dean today for me. And the only reason he wasn't there was out of pure pettiness. Rafa Benitez's ego, the fella who turns around and says it's all about the team. You can't put yourself first. Doing exactly that, putting himself first, putting his ego before anything, and dropping the player who would have made a big difference today because we didn't put anywhere near enough crosses into the area, especially in that second half when we had a target man on the pitch like Rondon. Luca Dean, you would have thought, would have thrown a lot of balls into the box for our players to attack, but he wasn't there. We just had to rely on Anthony Gordon. And basically, we got exactly what we deserved. And if Rafa Benitez gets the sack anytime soon, he'll have got exactly what he deserves as well. This, again, is another one in his column of games that he, more than anybody, has lost for us with his rubbish tactics and his rubbish decision making in terms of who he's playing and who he's leaving out and what he's doing in the middle of the game. I don't like the fella one bit. I don't blame any Evertonian who doesn't like the fella. I mean, if we sacked him, I would be concerned about who comes in, because you look at the managers available, and the only managers I think realistically Everton could get just make for very, very grim reading. But it's just a very, very dark time to be an Evertonian at the minute. All that optimism, or all that sort of lift that the Arsenal result brought, is now completely gone. We're still rooted in the bottom half of the table. I mean, I still don't think we're in any danger of going down. I think people are being a bit doomsdayish when they say that, but goodness knows what we're going to be looking to do in the second half of the season. It looks like it's just going to be a full campaign of looking to just somehow squeak in the top half, if we can even manage that. I mean, give us your thoughts below. I mean, this is the first time I've done it, but I've just talked from the heart, really. I thought Everton were absolutely dreadful, deserved what we got. Rafa Benitez, some serious, serious questions have got to be asked of him now, and I don't blame any supporter who wants to call him any name they like, as long as you don't go over the top with it. I don't want to see banners outside his house again. That Evertonians are better than that, but the fella needs to come out and explain himself to Evertonians. Stop with all this arrogance, I know this, and it's whatever I decide goes. No, mate, Evertonians don't like that from anybody, especially someone like you, who is a massive ardent Liverpool fan. We all know you are. We don't want you here. And if you're going to be here, then at least try and endear yourself to Evertonians instead of just slapping us in the face and losing us games because you're putting your ego before everything else. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you're having a good Sunday night regardless of the football, and this video hasn't bored you too much. But leave your comments below and make sure you subscribe.